The smell of industrial bleach and stale urine burned the back of my throat. I was standing in the flickering, fluorescent-lit hallway of a state-funded psychiatric ward, still wearing my heavy boots from a 14-hour military transport flight. My father was sitting in a stained paper gown in the corner of a crowded, screaming room. He was staring blankly at a concrete wall, completely unaware that the $2.5 million I bled to save for his specialized memory care was entirely gone. At what point does protecting the person who raised you stop being a family dispute and start becoming an act of corporate execution? My younger sister Chloe thought she had just outsmarted an absent daughter. She forgot one critical detail. I am a senior forensic blockchain architect for the federal government. I track stolen digital assets across international borders for a living, and she had just left a digital blood trail a mile wide. Before I go any further, I know some of you watching have been bled dry by the people who were supposed to be your family. This community exists for exactly this kind of story. If you are new here, subscribe. You belong here. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. The US, the UK, Canada, Australia, wherever you are. I genuinely love knowing who is in this room with me. Now, let me take you back. To understand how a daughter could dump her own father into a horrific state-run facility to steal his money, you have to understand the parasitic ecosystem of my family. Chloe was the undeniable golden child. She never held a real job. She floated through life on a cloud of my father's endless financial bailouts and manufactured excuses. I was the invisible engine. I was the workhorse they only called when the credit cards were maxed out or the mortgage was late. 5 years ago, my dad was officially diagnosed with aggressive early-onset Alzheimer's. His cognitive decline was terrifyingly fast. The doctors told me he needed 24-hour, high-security neurological care. The state insurance wouldn't cover the facility he actually needed. So, I built a financial fortress myself. I worked 80-hour weeks contracting for cybercrimes divisions, tracking laundered Ethereum through deep web shell companies. I didn't buy a house. I drove a 12-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield. For 2 straight years, I slept on a bare mattress on the floor of a tiny apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. Every single spare dollar I earned was routed into an irrevocable medical trust. The exact final balance was $2,540,800. It was enough to secure his placement at The Waterford, an ultra-luxury, heavily guarded memory care estate, for the rest of his natural life. I executed the transfers. I signed the paperwork. I made sure he was safe. And what was Chloe doing while I was wiring exactly $14,500 every single month to that facility? She was scavenging the remains of my father's empty checking accounts. While I was sleeping at my desk under fluorescent office lights, Chloe and her arrogant, unemployed husband, Marcus, were posting Instagram stories from a rented villa in Mykonos. They bought a $120,000 matte black G-Wagon and claimed it was a branding expense for her dead lifestyle blog. They consumed everything in their path. I hated them for it. But as long as my father's trust fund was locked and he was safe at the Waterford, I kept my mouth shut. 6 weeks ago, I got pulled into a highly classified digital raid in Eastern Europe. I was deployed to a secure underground server facility. Absolute radio silence. No personal cell phones, no internet access, no emails. I was a complete geographic ghost for 42 days. Chloe and Marcus didn't see my absence as a burden. They saw an open vault. They knew I was the only person actively monitoring the trust's legal barriers. They knew my father no longer possessed the mental capacity to read a legal document. 2 days ago, my deployment ended. I turned my cell phone back on while sitting on the tarmac at Andrews Air Force Base. My screen instantly flooded with 27 missed calls from the Waterford's billing department. I didn't even drop my bags at home. I drove straight to the facility. The administrator looked at me with pure pity. She handed me a printed copy of a forged medical power of attorney. "Your sister pulled him out 3 weeks ago, Elena," the administrator whispered. "She claimed you ran out of money." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked out to my car, opened my encrypted laptop, and pulled the raw banking logs for the irrevocable trust. The balance was 0. Chloe hadn't just moved him, she had liquidated his entire existence. I sat in the front seat of my car for exactly 20 minutes. I watched the rain hit the windshield, listening to the hum of my laptop's cooling fan. The grief inside my chest completely flash froze. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was pure, crystalline, forensic rage. I didn't call the local police. Local cops don't understand offshore digital asset relocation. I dialed Chloe's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice dripping with fake, manufactured sympathy. "Elena, oh my God, I was trying to reach you," Chloe gasped, playing the perfect, stressed-out daughter. "Dad's dementia got so much worse. The Waterfords said they couldn't handle him anymore." It was a blatant, disgusting lie. The Waterfords specialized in aggressive dementia. "Where is he, Chloe?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound small and broken. "We had to move him to a state facility in the city," she sighed. "It's not ideal, but it's all we could manage. His trust fund ran completely dry, Elena." "Ran dry?" I whimpered, biting the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted copper. "There was over $2 million in there." "The market crashed, Elle," Marcus yelled from the background, his voice dripping with pure, unearned arrogance. "The investments tanked. We had to liquidate to cover his outstanding debts." I closed my eyes. They weren't just stealing the money. They genuinely believed I was stupid enough to buy their cover story. "Okay," I whispered, letting a fake sob break my voice. "Okay, I just need time to process this. Please don't call me for a few days." "Take all the time you need, sweetie," Chloe cooed. "Family sticks together." I hung up the phone. The crying stopped instantly. The execution began. I connected my laptop to a secure federal VPN tunnel and went to work. If Marcus and Chloe thought they could wash $2.5 million through the traditional banking system without triggering a federal audit, they were absolute amateurs. But they didn't use a traditional bank. They used a decentralized crypto exchange. They had taken the liquid cash, converted it into stablecoins, and routed it through 3 different digital shell companies in the Bahamas. They were trying to wash the money so they could bring it back into the US as clean, untaxed corporate revenue. It took me exactly 4 hours to dismantle their entire digital fortress. Marcus was an unemployed tech bro who thought watching a few YouTube videos made him a financial genius. He made the single most fatal mistake you can make on the blockchain. He attached his personal Gmail address to the recovery seed phrase of the offshore wallet. I pulled the IP logs for the crypto transfer. The geographic ping didn't come from a financial institution. It came directly from a commercial Wi-Fi router at a luxury yacht dealership in Miami, Florida. They didn't pay my dad's debts. They bought a 60-foot Sunseeker yacht. I kept digging. I pulled the digital notary stamp from the forged medical power of attorney they used to break the trust. The electronic signature was registered to an IP address that matched their rented villa in Mykonos. They had forged my dad's signature while drinking champagne across the world. I compiled every single packet of data: the blockchain ledgers, the forged IP addresses, the wire transfer receipts. I built a 74-page forensic dossier, but I didn't send it to the police. I sent it to the white-collar crimes division of the FBI, flagged under my federal security clearance. And then, I waited. I maintained absolute radio silence for 2 agonizing weeks. I let Chloe and Marcus feel completely invincible. I let them take delivery of their stolen yacht. I let them post photos of their new designer clothes. I let them believe the quiet, boring workhorse sister had finally given up. But I wasn't giving up. I was just waiting for the trap to legally snap shut. 14 days later, I received a formal, aggressively worded letter in the mail. Marcus and Chloe had hired a high-end defense firm in Manhattan. They wanted to force me into a closed-door arbitration hearing. They wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, legally gagging me from ever questioning the trust's liquidation in exchange for a pathetic $50,000 settlement. They wanted to buy my silence with my own stolen money. I didn't argue. I accepted the meeting. The arbitration room was on the 45th floor of a massive glass skyscraper in downtown Manhattan. It was pouring rain outside, the water lashing violently against the floor-to-ceiling windows. The room smelled like expensive mahogany and cheap corporate arrogance. Chloe and Marcus sat across the massive conference table, practically glowing with unearned wealth. Chloe was wearing a $40,000 Cartier watch, the exact price of 3 months of my father's memory care. Marcus was wearing a bespoke Italian suit, leaning back in his leather chair with a smug, untouchable smirk on his face. They were flanked by 2 $1,200 an hour defense attorneys. I sat completely alone on my side of the table. No lawyers, no backup. Just me and my encrypted laptop. "Elena, we are trying to be generous here," their lead attorney said, speaking to me in a slow, patronizing tone, like I was a confused child. "Your brother-in-law successfully navigated a very difficult financial market to salvage what little was left of your father's estate. He slid a heavy, stapled contract across the polished wood. Sign the NDA, take the $50,000, and let your family move on in peace." I didn't touch the paper. I looked at Chloe. She was checking her manicured nails, completely bored by my presence. I spent 90 full seconds in absolute dead silence. I just sat there, listening to the rain hit the glass. I looked at the condensation building on the window. I listened to the faint ticking of the wall clock. The tension in the room slowly shifted from arrogant boredom to physical discomfort. Marcus cleared his throat, shifting uneasily in his expensive chair. "Sign the damn paper, Elena," Marcus snapped, his polished facade cracking for a fraction of a second. "I have a flight to Miami to catch." I slowly opened the lid of my laptop. "You're not going to Miami, Marcus," I said, my voice completely flat and devoid of any emotion. I pressed a single key on my keyboard. I didn't need a projector. I had already wirelessly bypassed the room's secure network. The massive smart glass wall behind their lawyers instantly flickered to life, transforming into a massive 4K monitor. The entire room froze. Displayed in 10-foot-tall glowing white text was the raw blockchain ledger for the offshore shell company. Next to it was the forged medical power of attorney. And highlighted in bright, violent red was the IP address linking the forgery directly to Marcus's personal laptop in Mykonos. The smug, arrogant smirk was literally wiped off Marcus's face. His skin turned a sickening, ghostly shade of ashen gray. "What the hell is this?" the lead defense attorney demanded, his professional tone completely breaking. "That is a live forensic trace of $2.5 million in stolen federal assets," I said coldly, looking directly into Chloe's terrified eyes. "And because you routed it through a Cayman server before bringing it back to U.S. soil, you didn't just commit fraud." I leaned forward, folding my hands neatly on the mahogany table. "You committed international money laundering." Chloe dropped her designer pen. Her hands started violently shaking. "You hacked us?" Marcus yelled, standing up so fast his heavy leather chair crashed to the floor. "You can't use this. This is illegal." "I didn't hack you, Marcus," I replied, my voice slicing right through his panic. "I audited you. I have federal clearance, and I submitted this entire dossier to the FBI 3 days ago." Right on cue, the heavy glass doors of the arbitration room swung open. They didn't even bother knocking. 2 Federal Marshals in dark suits stepped into the room, their badges clearly visible. The high-priced defense attorneys immediately took 2 huge steps away from Marcus and Chloe. When federal money laundering charges enter the room, expensive lawyers don't protect you, they abandon you. "Marcus Vance? Chloe Vance?" the lead marshal asked, his voice echoing like a gunshot in the silent room. Chloe collapsed back into her chair. She physically went limp. "No, wait, please!" Chloe hyperventilated, the tears streaming down her face, ruining her expensive makeup. "It was his idea. Marcus did the transfers. I didn't know." Marcus stared at his wife, absolute betrayal washing over his face as she instantly threw him to the wolves. The marshal grabbed Marcus by his bespoke suit jacket, spun him around, and slammed his hands onto the mahogany table. The metallic click of the heavy steel handcuffs sounded like a bank vault locking shut permanently. Chloe was pulled out of her chair, sobbing hysterically as the cold steel locked around her wrists, right over her stolen Cartier watch. They were dragged out of the glass room, kicking and screaming obscenities all the way to the elevator banks. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just calmly closed my laptop, packed it into my bag, and walked out into the rain. The legal fallout over the next 8 months was an absolute, unmitigated bloodbath. There was no instant jail time. The federal justice system doesn't work that fast. But it didn't matter. The FBI immediately executed a total, uncompromising asset freeze. Marcus and Chloe's bank accounts were locked. Their credit cards were declined. The 60-foot Sunseeker yacht was seized by federal authorities before it ever left the dock in Miami. Their luxury lifestyle was completely eradicated overnight. They are currently awaiting trial on 13 counts of wire fraud, elder abuse, and international money laundering. The federal minimum sentence is 15 years. I didn't attend their preliminary hearings. I don't care what happens to them now. I am sitting in the sunroom of the Waterford facility right now. It is a quiet, peaceful Tuesday afternoon. My father is sitting in a comfortable leather chair, looking out at the manicured gardens. He doesn't remember my name most days, but he is safe. The stolen trust funds were fully recovered and locked behind a federal mandate. He is comfortable, and he is exactly where he belongs. If this story resonated with you, drop a yes in the comments. I read every single one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss next week's video, where a wealthy mother-in-law tries to secretly sell a woman's startup company out from under her, only to realize the daughter-in-law legally patented the company name under her own dog's microchip. The loudest people in the room always think they are the smartest, until they realize the quiet ones own the building.